And I want to deposit this word in our hearts today, missed by the miscellaneous. Missed in the miscellaneous. Miscellaneous. If you've always wondered how to spell it, that's how you spell it. Maybe you've just always opted for the M-I-S-C and knew that it was miscellaneous. But if that ever comes up in a spelling bee now, you got it right here. Just work on that. Missed in the miscellaneous. There is a good chance that a few of you in this room, that in your house, you have a junk drawer. Yeah, see? They just told on themselves. That's who has a junk drawer. And that laugh is actually kind of like it's shame covered with humor. Because they're embarrassed at the thought of how terrible that junk drawer looks. That drawer didn't start off intended to be a junk drawer. It had purpose. There were some items of use and purpose in there. But then there were things on the countertop and things laying around, and company was coming. So you open up that drawer. You can't put all that in the silverware drawer. But that drawer, from that moment forward, became this holding place of the miscellaneous. And now it's at a point, and I can speak with experiential knowledge today, that you know there is something you need in that drawer, but now you slide that drawer open, and rarely does it even open all the way the first time, because there's some goofy long stem Christmas candle that got jammed in there that's now hanging the drawer up and you can't get it to open. Pair of scissors stuck sideways, something you finally reach your hand in there and blindly pat around trying to get everything to lay flat, and you pull the drawer out. And you're frustrated because you know that screwdriver or that whatever that one thing is that you know you need, that you know is in there somewhere. Now you can't find it and you're frustrated and you want to be mad at some other family member for losing it, but you know you participated in the mess of the miscellaneous. And so you can't vent because you're kind of mad at yourself, but you need to project it onto somebody else, and it's all missed in the miscellaneous. It's not all junk in there. It's just this combination of treasure and trash. It's this mix of things with purpose and a whole lot of things that are just pitiful. Don't even know how it got in there, who put it in there. You probably did. You just don't remember it. And now it's just, you don't even want to open the drawer now because it's overwhelming. My family recently moved, by recently in the last year and a half, and I got to tell you, I should have bought stock in Home Depot because we got a whole bunch of these boxes. They're good boxes. I broke them all down. We saved them. They're up in my attic. Just in case we find the property that we hope to have someday. We're going to move again. We're going to need boxes. But we had good intentions when we started packing. We rented a storage unit, started moving some unnecessary things out. We started going room to room, and we'd have a stack of Home Depot boxes in every room, and we started packing up the room and labeling the boxes. Connor's room, Caden's room, Carson's room, our room, living room, bathroom, labeling. And it was looking good. It was feeling great because you're putting stuff in these boxes. We're going to be able to load them up and take them to the next house, and it says bathroom on it. That doesn't go in the kitchen. It goes in the bathroom. Connor's room. Which one's Connor's room? Take Connor's boxes to Connor's room. And all that packing is great until you reach this tipping point in the house. When you start looking around at every room and you realize that every room had its version of a junk drawer. And you've just got all this stuff, and it's miscellaneous stuff. And before long, I just found myself loading up boxes, taping them shut, grabbing the Sharpie, and just writing on there, miscellaneous. Every now and then we'd put the room it came out of, but it just said miscellaneous. It may be from that room. It may belong to that room. It may should have been in another room, but somehow it ended up in that room. But it's just miscellaneous stuff. We have a stack or two of these boxes still in our garage right now. that say miscellaneous on them. I don't know what's in them. The other day, Brittany and I had some spare time on a Saturday, and we thought, let's go give a couple hours in the garage. We need to start working through these boxes. We could probably work through, a good wall of boxes. We get out there 2 hours and 2 boxes later. Because that miscellaneous box had pictures in it. The printed kind. In the old school. I was born in the 1900s. Print off our pictures. Man, Brittany and I, we just got lost in looking at pictures and laughing and walking down memory lane. And miscellaneous, you just never know what's going to be in these miscellaneous boxes. But here's the thing about the miscellaneous. Is it's a place of mixed things that has the potential to cloud clarity. It is just a place of mixed up things that you give it time. Where there used to be clarity in your life, it's going to start getting cloudy at best. The things you used to be able to see and know and understand and have a good handle on now are just immersed in this place of mixed up things. It stacks up, it overwhelms, and as the boxes keep stacking up, the overwhelming feelings keep climbing, and then what happens when we get overwhelmed? We just start avoiding. So you walk through the kitchen, you don't even want to open that drawer anymore. Good chance it's not even going to open, but I don't even want to open it. Don't even want to open that closet anymore. That closet's got so much stuff in it, we just leave it shut. It's become a shrine of the miscellaneous. Walk by it and have a moment of silence for all the things you know you have but don't know what it is, and you just honor its past purpose. You go out into the garage. I don't even want to look over at these brown and orange boxes anymore. I'm fine with the ones that say school stuff on it. We keep records of all the homeschool stuff. We've got, I've got boxes of books and got a box that says baseball cards. I'm fine with those because I can look at them and I have clarity. I know what's in them. But it's these guys, and they add up over time because the longer we live, the more stuff just kind of dumps in on our life. The more things we invite in, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And before long, we're just like these walking junk drawers. We just got all this miscellaneous stuff going on in our lives and in our worlds. And then the more we avoid the boxes, then we end up, so it goes from stacking up, piling up, to feeling overwhelmed. Overwhelmed calls us just to avoid it. And over time, you avoid it long enough, you just forget about it. You forget that you even had that. You forget that those boxes are even in the attic. We just don't go up there anymore. Forgetfulness. That's an area that we all could work on. Forgetfulness is not forgetting what matters. There's some things we need to forget. There's some things that we may never truly forget in that sense. It'll always be a part of us or on our minds, but we can be forgiven or extend forgiveness and be free from those things. There's some things we just need to be like, you know what? Forget about it. But there's other things we shouldn't forget. There are multiple chapters in the Psalms. One specifically I want to point us to today, and it's the 78th Psalm. And this psalm, it's a lengthy one. We're not going to go through all of it, just a handful of these verses, 2 sections of this chapter. But the purpose of this chapter is pressing upon God's people to not forget. Don't forget. The first section of verses I want to read are verses 9 through 12 of the 78th Psalm. It says, the Ephraimites, armed with the bow, turned back on the day of battle. They were prepared for the battle, But instead of advancing toward it, they walked away. They did not keep God's covenant, but refused to walk according to His law. They forgot His works and the wonders that He had shown them. In the sight of their fathers, He performed wonders in the land of Egypt, in the fields of Zoan. So here's Ephraim, one of the half-tribes of Israel. They're armed adequately. They're prepared for the battle. They have their bows in hand. They have their assignment, their purpose, their place on the battlefield that contributes to all the rest of the tribes for what should be the overall victory in this battle. But Ephraim, although they're equipped, they turn back. They know what God's expectations are of them. They got to a place where they just preferred their own way. So instead of walking in unity with the rest of God's people, they walked away. Instead of going out united onto the battlefield with their purpose and their assignment, they chose to walk away. And it wasn't because they weren't trained to fight. It wasn't because they didn't know how to use their bow or that they weren't skilled in their craft. That was their task. They were masters of what they were trained to do. But they were able to walk away because they forgot. What did they forget? They forgot about the works and the wonders. And when you forget about God's works and wonders, it's easier to walk away from Him. When we're not mindful of the works and the wonders of God, it becomes easier for us to just walk away from God, to walk away from callings and purpose and assignments that He has us to do, the purpose of this path that He has saved us to walk. But it wasn't just for them specifically. It was what God had done for their fathers, for the previous generation. This wasn't even about the miracles that they had themselves experienced, but they were forgetting about the track record, the history. You see, not everything behind us needs to be forgotten. Because there will be moments when you are not experiencing a miracle, when you are not experiencing a healing, and the faith and the hope that will carry you won't be from what you aren't seeing and experiencing, but it will be because you're holding on to the testimony of what they experienced and it went through. The testimony of others, of previous generations, that will carry you to say that the God I serve is the same God that they serve. And if He did it for them, I believe that He can do it for me too. They forgot about what God had done for the previous generation. It's sad to see people who have all the right weapons and tools for their assignment, when they have all the right equipping for the task ahead of them, the calling, the craft, the skill, but they drift away or they walk away because they just failed to remember. They got so caught up in all of the things that weren't. All of the unnecessary stuff, all of the things that are just going on, that they forgot that in this moment I have purpose. And that God will empower me to do what is needed in this moment. He can bring us victory today because I know He brought our fathers victory in their day. But we allow things to cloud our minds and to cloud our hearts and cloud our thoughts, not because we're horrible people, but because we're humans. In this life can weigh heavy and we can get so distracted. Have you ever tried a week without the news? It's refreshing. Life can go on quite well without CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and all the others. I mean, whatever you go to. I don't care where you're at, which side of the aisle you're sitting on, and what news you like to go to. Cut it out and see how that week goes for you. Chances are you'll still be breathing and probably breathing easier. You'll still be able to make good choices and probably better choices without all the extra that they're just pressing it upon you. But we get so wrapped up in everything that's going on around us. I'm not saying walk around with your eyes closed and live foolishly unaware of what's going on around you. But our lives get so immersed into everything, stuff that doesn't even pertain to us. Things that have no direct connection to us. And it's terrible now. Used to, thank God for the printing press. Newspapers came out and you could find out what's going on in your town, in your village, in your county, in the state. I was born 2 hours from here, and every now and then when my parents had a little extra, we'd subscribe to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. On Sundays, they had colored comics. It was great. You could find out what was going on in regions beyond you. And now we get to see what's going on around the world, and that's great, but that's terrible. We weren't built to handle this much information, this much data, this much, all the things going on. We're not wired to handle all of the consumption that we're partaking in. And it gets overwhelming, and before long, all the good things, all of those things that have purpose, all of those things that do pertain to who we are and where we are, they get lost and buried in that drawer, in that closet, and just gets put in a box and labeled miscellaneous. And I know there's probably things in there that I need, but is it even worth it? Is it worth going through all of that stuff? And here's where Ephraim was. They just forgot about what God had done for the previous generation. It matters where we place our focus. It matters what we choose to remember. I'm not saying you got to forget about all the real bad days, but don't forget about the good ones. Man, bad news sells. It sells. I mean, the bloodier the better, the worse the better, and just captures our attention, and it's just bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news. And you're scrolling and you're scrolling and you're scrolling. Every now and then it's nice. You come to a page that's reporting good news, and you see that somebody helped somebody move a stalled car or whatever, and you're like, you know what? Kind of gives me a little bit of hope for humanity, because I was about to tap out and give up on all of them. And we get so covered up with all this stuff, and we need to remember there's some good days. But even in the bad days, God's still good. There's an old song that says, I've had some good days. I've had some hills to climb. I've had some bad days and a weary mind. But when I look about and I think these things over, all of the good days outweigh the bad days. Here's the tough part of the song. And I won't complain. Why? The chorus says this. God is so good to me. He is so good to me. More than this world could be. He's so good to me. His Spirit came to me and gave me victory. But sometimes it's to get to that point, we've got to be willing to address the miscellaneous. Because there's things in there we're missing. There's stuff in there we're missing. I've grown up in and around church. I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. It's a wonder I'm still here. But you know why I'm still here? You know why I still love the Church of Jesus Christ? It's not because all the dumb things we do at times. And don't we? 44 years. I think I was born on a Wednesday, was in church on Sunday. Mom was the piano player. So I was in some kind of bassinet or something behind that old wooden upright piano. My folks were serious about church. And there I am. I've grown up in and around this. But I'll tell you, I got some stories that frighten you and terrify you. I'm telling you, we people, we can be a mess. But I tell you, when I look at it all, you know why I'm still around the Church of Jesus Christ? It's because all the good days outweigh the bad days. All the folks pressing on and making it through and walking in mercy and forgiving and loving and living. And I'll tell you, it makes it worth it. Have I been hurt? Yes. Have I probably hurt people? Yes. Have people ever said stuff that cut deep? Yes. Have people ever done things that hurt deeply? Yes. We're all people. But what we can do is we allow the miscellaneous of all that stuff. We allow all the hurt and the pain and the suffering and the misery, the strife and the division, and we allow all the different things. And I'm not like aiming at any specific things here. I'm just talking about real general things that happen when any group of people get together, right? But we can allow all the stuff, and then you toss in all the other things happening outside of this room. I mean, we all have lives. We all got projects, work, deadlines, tasks. We got lists of things that need to be done. We got projects, got dripping faucets that need to be fixed. We got, trim that needs caulked. We've got, ceilings maybe that got cracks that need mud and taped. I'll talk to you about that, Terry. We got things that, I'm just kidding. And so we bring all of our stuff outside of this room. We bring it in here with all the stuff that's in this room. And we all got our stuff and our miscellaneous. And we got all the little things that go on as we're all trying to walk together in unity. And I got to tell you, sometimes it gets kind of easy for your calling and your salvation and your purpose and your assignment to get lost. We miss things in the miscellaneous. We get overwhelmed. And all of a sudden, the calling and the purpose and the things you used to have a good grip on just start shaking its way to the bottom of the drawer, and all the weird stuff and odd stuff and miscellaneous stuff and trash stuff just kind of builds up on top of that. And you know it's still in there, but is it even worth looking for it anymore? Is it even worth trying to open that drawer up again? It's just going to get caught up, jammed up. You're going to break something. I'll tell you what's fun when you pull on it and it gives and the whole drawer pops out. Anybody been there? And all the miscellaneous is on the floor? Yeah, been there. You find what you're looking for, but now you're mad because you got all this mess. It's a mess of your own making. It was just a contained mess, and now it's an everywhere mess. But it gets like that for us, right? We miss things in the miscellaneous. Psalm 78, drop down to verse 41. We're halfway through this thing, so we're doing fine. Look at your neighbor, tell him, say, we're doing fine. Some of you didn't look like you believed that. We're doing fine. Verse 41, 42, and 43 of Psalm 78. So this is the people of God. They tested God again and again and provoked the Holy One of Israel. They did not, okay, here it is again. They did not remember. They did not remember His power or the day, somebody say the day, when He redeemed them from the foe. When He performed His signs in Egypt and His marvels in the fields of Zoan. This is talking about going back to the time when the people of Israel were in captivity in Egypt for hundreds of years, for generations, oppressed there, went there free, ended up slaves. And God brought them out. It was a day of redemption. A glorious day, a powerful day, not just a good day, but a God day. There was nobody that could have brought them out. I mean, it wasn't Moses. Moses was God's man, but it was God that brought them out of Egypt. Powerful. We shout about it today. We get excited about it. We weren't even there. We're happy for them. But yet it applies to us in our day when we were brought out of our Egypt, when we were redeemed out of our oppression and the slavery of our sin and darkness and shame that we were in. And they had forgot about His power, and it had gotten so bad, folks, that they forgot about the day they were redeemed. That's when it's gotten tough. That's when the miscellaneous has gotten so deep and so piled up and things have gotten so mixed up, is that we've gotten so detached from the very moment that set all of this in motion. You forgot about that time that maybe bedside in your bedroom, or maybe kneeling down at an altar at a church, maybe when they gave an invitation, you came forward, that first time, wherever it was, whatever it looked like when you gave your life to the Lord. But you took that step of baptism, entering into covenant with Christ, sealed with the power of His Holy Spirit, walking in His goodness and the riches of His grace. But then we just kind of forget. Because the miscellaneous. We've gotten to a point where we walk in here because we know it's good, we know it's right, but we're walking in with just boxes of miscellaneous. Clearly that one's empty. But filled with just things, and it's stacking up, and we get to going through the motions, and we can sing the songs that have lyrics that point us back to the day, but we don't feel the day. We have forgotten about the day. It doesn't move us anymore when we think about it, because we're not even thinking about it. We've forgotten about what it was like when He first forgave us of our sins and lifted that load off of us, when He washed those sins away, when He replaced that void now with the power and promise of His presence. We're just kind of here now, and it just all feels... In fact, here's the thing about a junk drawer, is it all just starts looking the same. The useless and the useful now all just start looking the same, because we can't decipher the difference anymore. And the people of God, they tempted God, they doubted Him to the point where they just provoked Him. They were asking questions. Now, don't ever be afraid of asking God questions. God's not afraid of our questions when we're asking Him in the right spirit. Thomas had doubts, right? The disciple, he had doubts, but he was doubting in the right direction. He came to Jesus, and he said some stuff like, I'm not going to believe it till I touch it, but all it took was seeing Jesus, and he realized, you know what? Yeah, we don't have to go through with my plan. I believe now. But he had his doubts. We've all been there. We all have them. Don't be afraid of asking God questions, but it's how you ask them. It's the spirit in which you ask them. And they were just provoking God because they forgot. The tone of how we talk to God changes when we start forgetting things. Our approach to God changes. You may still come before Him, but the tone is different. Because now you're just like, yeah, God, what you going to do now? You're just kind of provoking Him like, yeah, you say you're here, but I'm not seeing it. You say there's victory, I'm not feeling it. Instead of going, God, I believe that there is still victory in you and through you. And though right now I feel defeated and I am under the weight of all this going on, God, I'm going to keep my chin up. I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to believe in you. And I know you're faithful. I know what you've done for them. I know what your word says you do, and I know what your word says about who you are. And I'm going to stand on that and rest on that. But they forgot His power. They forgot about the day that they were redeemed. And here's what happens is when the devil begins to parade problems in front of you, when he begins to allow that to be the majority of what you see and trying to overwhelm us with all the problems, he wants us to forget some things. And anytime the enemy gets you looking back at stuff, here he chooses, he's selective about the scenes he wants you to see. Because anytime the devil begins to parade stuff in front of you, when he is showing you something, God is never at the center of it. When the devil wants to show you something that happened in life, he wants to make sure that it gives all the appearance that God is gone, that God wasn't there. He wants to put you at an angle, at a perspective of when you look at it, that it sure feels like God forsook me. And we start looking at moments and things in life and things in our past, and we start going, whoa, well, the way I'm seeing this, and we got to realize who's putting on the show for us. Whose lens are we looking through? Because if it's the lens of the adversary, he's never going to have Jesus at the center. He doesn't want you to remember that God was there. He doesn't want you to remember like those Hebrew boys that were thrown in the fiery furnace. He doesn't want you to remember that there was a fourth man in the fire and he sure looked like the Son of God. He wants you to look back at that situation and go, you know what? All I see is me and the other two. He wants you to forget about that God was faithful. And yes, He may have not have delivered you out of that moment, but God was with you every step of the way through that moment. But the enemy wants to play at his angle, spin the news a little bit, and to make you think that because you weren't brought out immediately, he wants you to forget that you were brought through eventually. Misinformation. He wants you to remember a version. He wants to reshape the narrative where it seemed like God was gone. Because if the devil can blind you to the glory and the goodness of God, even in the finest of details, then he can get you to walk away. I knew where I was going today. You didn't until now. That's why as they were singing that song and I came up and said, we've got to lean into this and lead into this. God, open my eyes. Help me to see. They didn't know that song was going to fit real well into this message today. But we need God to help our eyes so that we don't miss things that matter in the miscellaneous. Here's a command from Scripture, Psalm 103, verse 2. I'm trying to wrap up here. You okay? You okay? You doing all right? Is your nap going well? Okay. Psalm 103, verse 2. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Oh, that sounds great. All right, let's just bless His name. Let's have a little Sunday morning worship. That feels good. A little shout in the house, amen. But here's this other part. And forget not all His benefits. This isn't, we highly recommend that you do your part to try to remember to the best of your ability. No, don't forget His benefits, His works, the acts of God. Don't forget what He has done. It's a clear instruction for us today. It's a command to not forget the works of the Lord. An old chorus, old song, used to be a Sunday night shout song. Jesus, I'll never forget what you've done for me. Some of you know it, yeah. Jesus, I'll never forget how you set me free. You knew when they busted that one out, it was over. Preacher wasn't going to get to preach. They're going to start singing that song. Jesus, I'll never forget what you've done for me. We sing it. But we don't live that real well because we get caught up in the miscellaneous that we miss Him. We miss the miracles. We miss the moments. We miss those personal, powerful moments with Jesus. But here's the deal. It's not only for you personally. Forget not His benefits. That's not just... Don't forget what He's done for you, but it's bigger than that. There's an expanded version of this, okay? Psalm 119. We're just staying in the Psalms here this morning. This is my last verse, I think. Psalm 119, verse 111. If you're looking to try to memorize a whole chapter of the Bible, choose Psalm 117. I think it's like 2 or 3 verses. Start there. Don't start with Psalm 119. It's got, I forget how many verses exactly, but we're reading verse 111, so try that on for size. That's a lot to memorize. My brother did when we were in school. He memorized Psalm 119. La-di-da. I got up on our presentation day at that particular school, and I think I might have quoted like one little verse. He's up there quoting for hours. Not really, but it felt like it. The entire psalm. Psalm 119, verse 111. I think I just found something I need to pray over. I think like publicly, I just found a tender spot in my spirit that, no, not really, just mess. Getting down in the miscellaneous, I found something. Psalm 119, verse 111, it says, your testimonies, thy testimonies. He's talking to God. Your testimonies are my heritage. So God has something that is yours as well. Okay? Please get this. If you'll get this real fast, we can get out of here real fast. You ready to get it? All right. Your testimonies are my heritage forever. For they, His testimonies, are the joy of my heart. The testimonies of God. His words and His works. Not just what He has held on to, but everything that He has done throughout all of time. Please get this today. His testimonies are our heritage. So that when you're running short And you ought not, because you have enough on your own to be thankful for. But listen, if this isn't fuel in your tank, when you're in the middle of something and you're not feeling the strength, the power, the ability, here's what you have to fall back on. Not just the generation of your fathers, but we have as our heritage all the testimonies of God. It's why when we start going through things, we start praying Scripture and we start going back and saying, okay, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know why we can pray and rejoice in what God did for Abraham? Because if He did it for Abraham, He can do it for me. You know why we celebrate things that God did for Moses? God, if you could use Moses, then you can use me. All of these things are the testimonies of God. And so we have a strength in this source. It's not just your testimony. It's all their testimonies. And we get to use them and celebrate in them and rest in them, knowing that if God did it for them, and if that God was with them, and He's the same God that's with us today, then I think I'm going to be all right. All that He has done through the ages, from generation to generation. I'm wrapping up. Worship team, come. The strength of their testimony gives us strength for our trials. Their testimonies plus your testimony equals something exponential. Remember that little number, the exponent? You got the big number? They put a little number up here beside it, just hanging out there looking kind of cool, wondering what it's about. That's the exponent. It's the big number to the power of that number, I think. Am I doing math right? Am I doing that right? Whew. I didn't lose it all. So whatever that number is, your testimony, to the power of this number for generations. That's why John wrote in the book of Revelation, it's how we overcome 2 ways: by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Devil, you may think you have me now. You know what? I have been kind of weak and I have been struggling, but you know what? And you just start naming names about all the people that have overcome, all the people that made it, all the people that shouldn't have but did, all the people that we gave up on but He didn't. Hello? And we're in this room today. People gave up on us, but God never did. And here you are. Here I am. And here we go, because we are rising up out of the miscellaneous, because we understand there's a mission in it. There's a ministry in it. There's a calling in it. And we're not going to stay in the middle of the mess. Don't let the goodness and the kindnesses of God get packed away in boxes of miscellaneous. I know this about this room today, because I know you. Some of you I know better than others. Some of you I may just be getting to know, but here's what I know. Is there's been moments, maybe you're here today and you've got a box or boxes. And in your box, there's been forgiveness there and mercy there. Your day of redemption's in there. That moment when you really consecrated your heart and God did something so specific to you that you knew there was something more for you. But it didn't unfold right away, and life happened and they left and they walked out and this broke. And so we just kind of throw it all in a box. But there's kindnesses of God in there. There's goodnesses of God in there. I know there might be a divorce in there, but there's a God who was faithful to you in there. I know there may be some kids that walked away, or friends that walked out. But there's a testimony of a God who never walked away. I know people may have said stuff that hurt you. They may have done things that offended you. But there's people who were faithful and people who were true. But I know what can happen in these boxes of miscellaneous. They get overwhelming. And we just start avoiding them, and eventually we just forget about them. Because some of the stuff we want to forget about and maybe need to forget about, but the danger of just lumping it all together is we forget about the things that are the very things that will carry you through this moment right now. I told you I didn't come to just give you a cute little sermon today. I've come to minister to you today. And so maybe you got to unpack and repack today. And clearly mark those boxes. Brittany and I are committed to do it pretty differently on the next move. We're not promising that there won't be any miscellaneous boxes, but there's going to be a way less of them. Maybe I can have a better message about that. But do you remember the good feeling about the boxes that were marked and you knew right where they were supposed to go? And you knew what was going to come out of them and where it was to be put? You know the good feeling that that gave, the sense of settledness and clarity and purpose? Do that with your life. Clearly mark those miracles. Clearly mark those defining moments that shaped you and made you and built you. Remember the moments that felt like you were never going to come through, but there was finally that breakthrough moment. Clearly mark that. Remember that. That's why God had his people in ancient times often build memorials. You know why he had them do that? It's not because the stones necessarily were something in and of themselves, but he knew they were going to have a moment. And they needed to be able to go back and say, you know what? God did it. God did it. When you're questioning your call, you better open up that box because I know it's down in there. You're just forgetting about it because you've allowed all this other stuff to get in and cover up. And that's why you haven't maybe had the passion and the fire and the zeal and the fervency, because it just got all buried. And you forgot about it. So go through those boxes and throw out the trash. Throw out the pettiness. Throw out the unforgiveness. Throw out the offense. Bring out the hurt and let it get healed and get whole. And why? Because there's stuff in these boxes that's worth keeping. But to get to them, you got to wade through and throw out all the rest. Quit avoiding it. Address it. Why? Because beneath the layers, there is a power. There is a latent power, identity, and clarity that's been there all the while. It just got covered up by the miscellaneous. And we missed it in the miscellaneous.